Good evening, guys. I have got a little bit of fun stuff here this evening that I have been pondering, and we're going to take a look at Leah and Rachel, and we're going to talk about polygyny in their own words. First, the intro. Buckle up. All right, guys, I'm excited this evening. We're going to take a look at polygyny from yet another angle. There's so many different ways that this is entirely and completely supported in Scripture. It's beyond deniable. It's beyond questioning. It is absolutely and essentially part of the entire message of the gospel. Now, this evening, I've got a full evening. It's been super busy recently, and with work and with family and farm and everything else. But tonight I'm gonna be recording 3 videos. The first one is this one. The second one is going to be a general video for my patrons that is going to be talking a little bit about the difference between convincing versus leading. And so we're going to have a little discussion about this that will be of general help to my patrons. If you are not a patron, I recommend you come over and take a look. If not, everything that we have, or most every video that I have, is there for individual purchase. If you go to the shop for our patron, and you can just take a look at it. And if there's a particular topic or a particular subject or something, you can pick that up individually. But it makes much more sense just to be a patron and come participate with us and hang out. Now, the third video that I'm going to do is for our currently growing Restoring Patriarchy series. I'm going to be working on a video, and that is going to be for the architects and the builders. Have to stop and think about that, as well as the Jacob's Tent members. It is available as the entire collection can be purchased. If you want that outside of what membership is, or just simply become a member, and then you can participate in or have access to those videos. So certainly a little bit more about Patreon right here. Transform your understanding of biblical family structure with exclusive content and community access. Unlock immediate benefits, daily private discussions, specialized men's and women's groups, direct mentoring opportunities, resource library access, and regular video content. Choose your journey. We have free membership with core access content, a builder, enhanced resources, the architect with premium benefits, and Jacob's Tent, the complete experience. Join today and receive instant access to our private Telegram groups, personal guidance from experienced mentors, and a supportive community of like-minded individuals. Don't wait. Take advantage of these exclusive opportunities now. Visit our Patreon page and level up your biblical understanding today. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Rachel and Leah. I know so often that Christendom just denigrates Rachel and Leah and talks about, oh, those poor women. They were so abused. And all of that nonsense. Okay, that's total nonsense. And we just did a video called that was titled "How Pastors Curse Themselves," or how pastors can bring a curse on themselves, and that is by speaking ill of Abraham, right? Well, the churchianity, and those who think themselves wise in their own eyes spend a great deal of time talking about how, oh, poor pitiful Leah, poor pitiful Rachel. Well, you know what? Rachel and Leah have some things to say, and they would say some things to you, and you need to hear what they have to say. Okay, so we're familiar with the story in Genesis and how Laban used a little bit of deceit in order to marry Leah off first to Rachel, and I have gone through a complete video called God, Jacob, and Polygyny, indicating or going through and identifying the fact that it was God's will from the very beginning. God made it a point to have Jacob as a polygynist. It was God's will for Jacob to have 4 wives right from the jump. Okay, so anybody who tells you otherwise is not being honest. I'll use that. That's the nicest thing I can say, is they're not being honest. Because the text very clearly says it's God pulling the levers on the wombs. It's God making things happen in his timing and according to his will in order to spread 12 sons, 13 tribes. Okay, 12 sons, 13 tribes is what we have across all 4 women that were involved. But the women have some things to say about this as well, and everybody wants to dwell on Leah and her and the fact that she felt like she wasn't loved. Now, whether she felt like she wasn't loved or not, I can assure you that in order to have 6 sons, she had to be having some kind of action. I'm just, you know, I have 4 sons, and it took more than 4 tries to get 4 sons. I'm just telling you, okay? So she was getting plenty of attention. She just may not have been the favorite of Jacob, and I've talked a little bit about favoritism, and that if Jacob did something wrong, that may have been the one thing that he did wrong, though as the head of the house, he has that prerogative. Not a good one, but he has that prerogative. Nevertheless, I know some of you women are getting all uptight about this instead of just reading what the scriptures say and looking at the story and understanding what the story says. The surface of the story tells us more than we need. We don't have to go digging underneath even to find problems. Nevertheless, let's see some other parts of the story that y'all ignore. You hate this story because you hate God's ways. But that's, you know, we're going to look at it again. Let's take a look at it again. Now, I'm going to skip it. It starts in Genesis chapter 29, middle of the chapter, something-ish. But we're going to start in Genesis chapter 30, around verse 1, because we really want to focus on a couple specific verses here in Genesis chapter 30 to hear the words of Rachel and Leah. Now, I know for those of you who want to denigrate Rachel and Leah and you want to talk ill of them, remember, there is no record of any kind of competition or infighting or anything between them after Rachel has a son. There's no record. It's not there. So the whole issue really was about having sons. And Scripture as a whole, I've talked about this in another video, go find it, talking about the reproach of a woman. And it is a reproach for a woman not to have offspring, okay? Now, there are some rare circumstances where the father, for one reason or another, does not open a womb, but he provides ways for that to be taken care of in Scripture, whether Christendom wants to agree with that or not, right? But by their traditions, they nullify the commandments of God, right? So we see that often, too often. Anyway, let's flip this camera around here and take a look at Genesis chapter 30, and we're going to go through, and I really want to highlight a couple specific verses as we go through here, because there's a real neat story here that the church won't tell you. They're not interested in you hearing this part of it. And in fact, they actually go contrary to this part of it as often as they can. And again, it is all about cursing God and cursing his ways and cursing Jacob. Cursing the seed of Abraham. Yeah. That's really what this boils down to. So, now when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she became jealous of her sister. Now, there was no jealousy before that. This is the point at which she becomes jealous of her sister. She's jealous. Why? Because she doesn't have a son. Now, we know who opens and closes wombs, don't we? And this is going to be right here. She said to Jacob, "Give me children." Actually, the text says sons, else I die. Then Jacob's anger burned against Rachel. He said, "Am I in the place of God? Elohim, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? Jacob says it's God who withheld the fruit of the womb. God opens and closes wombs. Rachel's problem isn't with Jacob. Jacob's obviously not the problem. He's producing sons with Leah. The problem here is that Rachel's womb is closed, and she's upset about it. And she says, so Jacob correctly says, God is the one. I'm not in the place of God. God is the one who's withheld the fruit of the womb. Why is that? Because God is the one pulling the levers. God is the one that says, no sons here until I, the Most High God, accomplish what I, the Most High God, have planned. So he's the one that has said, nope, none for you right now. So what does she do? She said, here's my maid Bilhah, go into her that she may bear on my knees. She's going to function as a surrogate mother, that she may bear on my knees, that through her I too, literally from her, I too may be built, okay? Through her I too may have sons, okay? Now, we know that this is a perfectly legitimate way in which to bring about offspring. Hagar, Abraham and Sarah tried this with Hagar. Now, Hagar turned against Sarah, and that was the real issue there, was when Hagar got uppity with Sarah, when in fact she was still Sarah's handmaid, Sarah's maidservant. So that was the issue. The issue wasn't that Hagar was bearing a son. That wasn't the issue. Never was. And this is something that we can read about in ancient Ugaritic code or law. It was not uncommon to some of the cultures in that day, but this is not a pagan practice. This is a practice for what God allows. God allows this in any culture, anytime, any place, okay? There's no place ever where God steps in and says, oh, don't do that. That's wrong. Okay? There's no place ever this is called sin. There's no place ever this is called a problem. Okay? And we're going to see here. So she gave him her maid Bilhah as a wife, or it should probably be, the Hebrew's probably as his woman. There is no word in Hebrew for wife. It's Isha. Okay? That's his woman. And it's always in the possessive. So she gave her to him as his woman, and he went into her. And it tells us, Bilhah conceived. Maybe right away, maybe it took a little practice, we might say. But Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. What is Rachel's response? This is important. This is a very important verse. Rachel said, God has vindicated me. What? Yeah. She ascribes that to God. He's judged me and he's heard my voice. And he gave me a son. This is a blessing. Sons are a blessing. Did you know that? We're told that elsewhere in Scripture. Sons are a blessing, right? He has heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore, she named him Dan, which means judged. Okay? So God judged and he heard her voice. She ascribes that to him. Now, I know some people say, oh, no, but, just because she said it doesn't mean it's true. Well, if it's a false accusation against the Most High, we would expect him to say, wait, I had nothing to do with that. Or we could just as easily have expected him to close Bilhah's womb, and Bilhah would not have had a son or two. And yet that's not what happened, is it? I love this. God judged Rachel and vindicated her. That's exactly what the text says. Now, yes, it comes from Rachel's mouth, but that doesn't make it any less true. He judged and vindicated her. So Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again. Oh, look, God's still blessing, right? And bore Jacob a second son. So Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and I have indeed prevailed. And she named him Naphtali. And everybody wants to read into this, all of this drama that's going on between the sisters. The truth is, Leah's already got 4 sons. Now, I want to back up for just a second. Let's talk about Leah. What would cause Laban to marry Leah off first? He pulls this thing out of his hat that says, oh, we got to marry the first one first. But Jacob has lived in the culture now for 7 years and should have a pretty good idea of what's going on. And Rachel surely would have voiced something to him along the way, unless Rachel and Leah were in on the plan from the get-go. That's what I think. I think Rachel and Leah were in on the plan. And I think that Leah was possibly somebody that was going to be hard to get married off a different way. So Laban went, I bet I can do this. I can take care of 2 birds with 1 stone. I will take care of Leah. I'll get her married off, and then I just go ahead and let's throw a little alcohol at Jacob. He's having a good time. Won't know the difference. By tomorrow morning, they're married, and she will be his because he will have taken her. And then we'll worry about the consequences afterwards. Oh, yeah, you can have Rachel too. No problem. Just serve me 7 more years, right? That's how that went down. I don't think Leah had a really good option, and Laban saw, I can pawn her off on this guy right here. And God says, okay, I'll take care of her. For the rest of eternity, everybody's going to know her name, and they're going to call her blessed, and 6 of the 13 tribes will come from her. How about that? How about that? What a blessing. Here we go. Some people want to talk about, oh, Laban did her wrong. She should have been let go. She should have had some other option. She could have been the only wife of some other schmuck. And we wouldn't know her name. She wouldn't be part of Israel. She wouldn't have 6 gates to the New Jerusalem named after sons of hers. When people start talking and chirping about Leah and how poor a situation she had, the only thing that runs through my mind is big red letters that say moron. Because you haven't thought this thing through. You wouldn't even know her name. And yet here she is. We're going to find out just how famous and how much she's held in high esteem. Let's keep going. So here we go. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, oh wait, how do you find out that you stopped bearing? Leah saw that she stopped. How do you find out that she stopped bearing? What gave her the idea that she was no longer bearing? Oh, she was probably having relations on a regular basis and nothing was happening. She was fertile myrtle before. See, some of y'all think, poor Leah. No, Jacob was taking care of business. Okay? Jacob was taking care of business, and she was getting plenty of attention. Okay? She's producing sons. And this is a good one. This is good for the house of Jacob. Excellent. And yet she figures out she stopped bearing. How do you find out that you stopped bearing? Right? So anyway, she says, okay, I got this. We can do this. She took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as his woman. Now, elsewhere in Scripture, both Zilpah and Bilhah are referred to as concubines. Okay? So, in one sense, they were concubines. They didn't have the same status, if you will, of Rachel and Leah, but they were women that belonged to Jacob. Make no mistake about it. Gave her to Jacob as his woman. Leah's maid, Zilpah, bore Jacob a son. Oh, wait, stop. Huh? God's opening and closing wombs. He's pulling the levers. Christendom hates this. It's because your traditions come straight from Greco-Roman paganism. They don't come from Scripture. That's why you hate this. And it's because you have a feminist mindset instead of taking a look at what Scripture has to say. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Now listen to this. This is great. Leah said, "How fortunate." So she named him Gad, meaning fortune, right? How fortunate. She didn't go, "Oh no, another woman in the house having children. This is terrible, poor, pitiful me." She says, "How fortunate." Then it says, Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. She has another one. Now, listen to this. Listen to this. This is the killer line for all of Christendom. And, Christendom. Then Leah said, "Happy am I, for women will call me happy." So she named him Asher, meaning happy. How many women today call Leah happy? The only thing I see in my feed talking about what Scripture actually has to say about marriage, not what Greco-Roman tradition is, not what pagan practices in Christianity are, not what feminized monogamy-only cult behavior believes, what Scripture says. And women and men come in going, "Oh, poor pitiful Leah, what a sorry situation she had." That's not her opinion right here. Leah says you're a liar. That's what she says. She says you're a liar. And she says that you're not part of the people that matter when you don't call her happy. Yeah. But we're going to double down on this in just a minute. You just wait till where we're going in a minute. Leah said, "Happy am I, for women will call me happy." She named him Asher. Wow. So let's keep going. Now, in the days of the wheat harvest, Reuben found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother, Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." So these mandrakes are supposed to be, some refer to them as love apples. We don't really know what they are, but the bottom line is they're considered an aphrodisiac that are helpful in becoming pregnant. Rachel still wants to have a child, a son herself, though she has two through Bilhah. Nothing wrong with that. I understand the deal. And so she asks, please. She's nice. But Leah said to her, "Is it a small matter for you to take my husband, and would you take my son's mandrakes also?" This is kind of a snarky response from a woman that already has 8 sons. No, 6. No, she's got 4 plus 2. So she's got 6. Although currently she is not bearing. But she said, "Is it a small matter for you to take my husband, and would you also? Therefore, he may lie with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes." That's what Rachel says. So Rachel says, "Okay, if you'll give me, I'll give up rights, exchange rights tonight." And a lot of people say, "Oh, that's such a terrible thing." No, that's, there are lots of negotiations that happen in any house, whether monogamous or not. You negotiate with your children. You negotiate with each other. Okay? The husband's supposed to be the leader, and yet still sometimes resorts to negotiating. So when Jacob comes in from the field, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, for I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he lay with her that night. Now, here's what I think might have been going on. Leah's clearly not bearing, and so maybe Jacob isn't spending as much time with her as he normally would or could. Okay, I get it. She hasn't born any children. So as a result of this circumstance, God actually placed mandrakes in Reuben's hands so that this whole thing could go down. Now, you're saying, "Pete, you're stretching the text." No, I believe that the Father sets things up in order to accomplish his purpose. And what he wants is he wants Jacob to go back into Leah. And so now, as a result of these circumstances, Jacob's going into Leah again. And oh, look, God opened her womb back up. God gave heed to Leah, just as he previously gave heed to Rachel, as he will give heed to Rachel again. God gave heed to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. God is the one opening and closing wombs. God is the one causing these circumstances. Nothing happens outside of his plan and his control. He's the one making this happen. Christendom wants to sit around and yeah over Rachel and Leah, and yet they're being fruitful. Leah especially. Great googly moogly. Then Leah said, God has given me my wages, payment. God has given me my wages because, this word right here ought to make every pastor choke on his milk. I'm telling you. Because I gave my maid to my husband. So she named him Issachar. For all eternity, there is a gate on the New Jerusalem called Issachar because Leah gave her maid to her husband. Yeah. There's not a Baptist gate, there's not a Methodist gate, there's not a Presbyterian gate, but there's an Issachar gate. Love it. I love it. You guys you got to stop and think about what the scriptures actually say. Leah conceived again. So Jacob's back. He's back in there, man. Leah conceived again and bore a sixth son. Or Leah, she bore a sixth son to Jacob. Then Leah said, God has endowed me with a good gift. Now my husband will dwell with me because I have borne him 6 sons. And she named him Zebulun. God has endowed me with a good gift. God has endowed me. Women will call me happy. God has endowed me. Yeah. God has given me my wages. Yeah. Afterwards, she bore a daughter named Dinah. So she continued to bear others. We may know, and she may have borne other daughters as well. The other ladies may have been bearing daughters as well. We're only given the names of the characters that are important for the storyline. And this happens all the way through Scripture. In terms of multiple wives, I think a lot of men had multiple wives. Many. But we're only told when it matters to the storyline. In this circumstance right here, Dinah, as a daughter, matters to the storyline because we're going to read about her in a couple chapters, 34, I think, with the daughters, with Shechem and Hamor and the things that happened there, right? And then it says, then God remembered Rachel and gave heed to her and opened her womb. Why did he wait so long? Oh, it's because he obviously wanted everything else that happened to happen first. You think if he had given her a son or two right at the beginning, that the rest of this would have unfolded this way? Probably not. God caused it to happen. And every time people denigrate polygyny or denigrate plural marriage or denigrate a man for having multiple wives or denigrate Jacob, they're actually speaking against the Most High. Every single time. They think that their judgment is better than God's judgment. They think that their understanding of the law is better than God's understanding of the law that he gave. Yeah. So here we go. God remembered Rachel, gave heed to her, and opened her womb. So she conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. God has taken away my reproach. Right? So she named him Yosef, saying, may Yahweh give me another son, which we know happens a little bit later on with Ben Oni, renamed Benjamin, son of the right hand, instead of son of my sorrow, because Rachel dies in childbirth with the second son. But this isn't the end of the story, right? This isn't the end of the story. The ladies are praising the Most High. Rachel says, God has vindicated me when she receives a son through Bilhah. Zilpah, women will call me happy. So she names him Asher. Later, God has given me my wages. So she names him Issachar. Rachel, here, God has taken away my reproach. May Yahweh give me another son. These ladies are laying it all at the foot of the Most High. The Most High is the one that's pulling the levers. He's the one that gets the credit. And these are the names of the gates into the New Jerusalem. Yeah. But there's another place I want to take you. This is another really cool place in Scripture. Let's go to Ruth chapter 4. Ruth chapter 4. Because some of y'all, you just like beating up on Rachel and Leah and so on and so forth. But here we go in the Boaz story. Now, according to tradition, and there are some clues that point this way, Boaz and Ibzan, the judge of Israel, are one and the same. Ibzan from Bethlehem, had 30 sons and 30 daughters. Okay? And so there's some other indicators that seem to indicate that Boaz may well be the same as Ibzan. Certainly in Jewish tradition, they believe it's the same person, right? Boaz. And in the text here, lots of indicators that seem to tell us that Boaz had multiple wives. At the very least, multiple concubines, building his house. And he was a righteous man. He was a judge of Israel, not unlike other righteous men who had multiple wives, like, Gideon. There are others during that time frame that were judges of Israel with multiple wives. Yeah. But there's something really interesting here, okay? So, Boaz said to the elders and all the people, you are witnesses today that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilon and Mahlon. Moreover, I have acquired Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, to be my woman in order to raise up the name of the deceased as an inheritance. He's an older, wealthy man. He has family. He has holdings. He has no need of another woman, but he knows the law. And according to Deuteronomy chapter 25, he has a responsibility as a near kinsman to redeem the name of Elimelech. And so that's what he's doing, is raising up seed to his brother's house. All the people who were in the court and the elders said, we are witnesses. May Yahweh make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, both of whom built the house of Israel, and may you achieve wealth in Ephratah and become famous in Bethlehem. Wait, what? They hold these women in high regard. This is the foundation of the wombs, the fruit that came from these wombs, the tribes of Israel. They hold them in high regard. And that's a blessing even today among Jews. Now, I haven't been to any weddings lately where they say, to the bride, may the Most High make you like Rachel and Leah. No, everybody wants to talk bad about Rachel and Leah. This is the same Leah that said, happy am I. Women will call me happy. No, women make her into a liar because they think they know more than the Most High, and they think they know more than the very person in the middle of the whole story who winds up with 8 sons to her name, 2 by Zilpah and 6 of her own, as well as daughters. Yeah. And yet Israel was smart enough, the elders, this is the elders, this is the learned men who were much closer to the Torah than you or I, much closer to the culture than you or I. What did they say? We are witnesses. May Yahweh make the woman who's coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, both of whom built the house of Israel, and may you receive wealth in Ephratah and become famous in Bethlehem. And she is. Ruth is famous. And Yeshua, Jesus, the Messiah, comes through the polygynous house of Boaz, as well as the polygynous house of Jacob, as well as the polygynous house of Abraham. Yeah. But some people hate that. They despise that truth because they much prefer their feminism. They prefer their man-made traditions, their monogamy-only mindset. Well, you know what? Leah's going to be in the kingdom. So is Rachel. And they'll be with Jacob, as well as Zilpah and Bilhah. And there will be 12 gates named after the sons that came from these 4 stellar women. Lives weren't perfect, but anybody that can point to a perfect marriage, I'll tell you, you're probably full of it, because there aren't any. There is no perfect marriage. Every marriage has its moments. What we do know is after Rachel had a son, we never see any argument between the ladies again. We never see any friction. In fact, we see them together in the field helping Jacob plot to leave Laban. They're working together to get ready to go. Yeah. So anyway, when Christendom says, "Oh, poor pitiful Leah," I think, moron, 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 because they don't know, you don't know the scriptures. Because Rachel and Leah consider themselves happy and blessed. For King and Kingdom, I bid you shalom.